Hi, this is a quick video on indoor herb gardens. So I'm going to show you a couple of items from my herb garden that's growing in my house. My son was kind enough to plant these herbs for me, and so I'm going to be featuring them throughout the summer, just giving you progress on how they're doing, what I use them for, how I cook with them in my recipes, and what they actually look like. The first herb we're going to talk about today is the oregano, then my dill, then my Italian parsley, and then we're going to talk about my basil plant. So this is the oregano plant, and most people purchase oregano dry in a container from the supermarket, or they'll purchase it individually packaged in the produce area from a supermarket. So I just want to give you a really closer look at the oregano and give you a sense of what it looks like when it grows. It doesn't grow in any particular fashion or order. Basically, my son threw a whole bunch of seeds in a pot, and he's been nurturing and watering it and making sure they get lots of sunlight. These were started toward the beginning of March, so the temperature in Jersey was kind of iffy, meaning that there were days that it was warm and there were days that the temperature at night dipped below freezing. So the herb garden, you do have to monitor the temperature. They need to be in an environment that's warm, and they need to have lots of sunlight, and they do need to be watered. And if it's really cold, they'll die off really quickly. So I'm going to zoom in on the oregano so you can get a good idea of what it looks like when you have it fresh. And contrary to belief, you can successfully grow an herb garden indoors. You do not necessarily need to have a massively large space for your herbs to grow, because in reality, the longer they grow, they start to expire, they'll turn a little brown, they'll get bad. So you want to grow enough at a time so that you'll be able to use it, and then you start another plant, so when that plant is either used up or dies off, you'll have a fresh stock. So this is my dill plant, and dill is kind of like really cool and funky. It grows really tall with these little spiky leaves that, as you can see here. Just like the oregano, you put the seed, you can put the seeds in a pot, and you can let it go for itself. It comes dry in the store as well, and McCormick has a gluten-free brand of all these herbs, or you can buy it in the produce section. And I want to see if you can get a really closer look at the leaves and how gentle and tender they are. So these are the leaves, and they're quite fragrantly, all the herbs. One of the things that I like about the fresh herbs is that when you touch the leaves, you get a whiff of the actual scent of the herb, and you don't really get that from the dry herbs, and you really don't get a full sense of the smell even when you buy the packaged herbs in the supermarket. So this is the dill plant, and I want to make sure you get a close up on the leaves, and it kind of grows on like these little stems, and it's wild. It kind of reminds me of a crazy hairdo, and I just like having them on the windowsill, going and picking up what I need and not having to worry about running to the supermarket to pick up an herb to season a recipe. These parsley seeds were called Italian parsley, and the growing process is exactly the same. They look like parsley, and I haven't quite figured out why they're called Italian parsley. But again, I want you to get a look at the leaves and see how they grow. They're on little tiny stems again, and they grow wild and crazy looking, and you just pluck off what you need and you just let the plant grow. And like as I said before, we're always starting new pots of plants, because if you grow them in a massive amount, unless you cook with these herbs every single day, they'll tend to die out before you use them, and that's kind of not the point of having the garden. You want to use what you create, and that's one of the things that we try to be really great about. They grow pretty quickly. They're, again, just like the dill and the oregano, The parsley is super sensitive to temperature. If you're starting your garden now, the weather seems to be a bit on the warm side and seems to be consistently staying 65 and above, so there's no frost overnight, so your garden indoors will do really well. If you decided to start your herb garden next year in the early spring, sometime in March, you would probably want to get into a regimen of putting the pots in the window in the daytime when the temperature is warm, and then removing them from the window in the evening when the temperature drops and the glass somewhat gets a chill, or the plants could actually start to die because of the quick change in temperature. But if you're starting to garden now, I think it'll be perfectly fine, and I think that you'll get a really, really good turnout, as now we're starting to see warmer days. The sun is more intense, and these plants tend to do really well in the warm weather. They tend to do really well with a lot of exposure to sunlight, and you'll see it, they'll begin to flourish. The next plant that I'm going to show you in this short video is the basil. And this plant seems to be one of the favorites in my household. I use the basil a lot when we cook. We're constantly growing the basil plant because it has so many uses. And as I mentioned before, if when you go to the basil plant, you just slightly rub the leaf like this, your fingers, even though you don't have anything on your fingers will pick up the scent of basil, which I love the idea of actually touching herbs and actually getting that scent on me. For a closer look at the leaves, as you can see, the leaves of the basil plant are really, really tiny to a certain degree. And if you were walking down the street and you didn't know what this plant was, you would probably assume that someone was growing a whole bunch of weeds. Um, the leaves can grow really, really big, not humongously big, but as you can see here, I have some really, really tiny leaves inside of the basil plant, and then I have some really, really decent sized leaves of basil. Trying to find something that's really tiny that the camera can get a view of. There's some really small ones in here. So it does vary on the exposure. In a pot that's about this size, you probably want to drop maybe like 6, 7 seeds and spread them out. And some of them will flourish, some of them won't, which is typical with every type of plant that you can imagine. It goes for the dill, the oregano, and the parsley as well. Don't throw the whole pack into a pot because they're basically fighting for the nutrients in the soil. They're fighting for the nutrients in the water. They're fighting to get the sunlight. So be sparing. Put like 7, 8 seeds in the pot. Nourish it. Let it grow. Have an alternate pot ready when you see that you're using this plant up, what's about to peak. You know, start to plant the other one, or when you start using this plant, you can also start to plant the other one, and your garden will keep flourishing. My son is really great at planting these things and nourishing them, so there's always fresh herbs in my house all year long. This is the first of one of the many series of herbs that I'm going to do this summer. I'm also going to use them in my cooking. I'm also going to do some filming of my finds in the farmer's market. So I just hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. I'll probably put up some information about different herbs, different seeds later on this summer. And also remember that they're all different types of herbs. There are different types of basil, there are different types of parsley, there's different types of oregano, there's plain oregano, there's lemon oregano, there's cinnamon oregano. So be inventive, you know, explore. Even if you don't want to grow the plants to cook with, you just want to grow them for the beauty, try to do it. An indoor herb garden is really, really great. It gives you an opportunity to explore the world of food without necessarily cooking. You can actually cut the stems and dry them out, and then if you have a grinder, grind them into powder. Put the the powder version of the herbs in a nice jar, put a label on it, give it away as holiday gifts to people, or you can stock your own seasoning cabinet with them. There's a million and one things that you can do with these plants. Once you get started on using them, you're going to start to feel differently about them, because your creative process will start to explore different methods of cooking, different methods of using them, different methods of displaying them. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.